Now I'm going to give you a 4-step process for adjusting rotors out in the field. If you're a typical maintenance and repair technician, you're going to spend a large part of your time adjusting sprinkler heads while doing spring startups or tune-ups or whatever. Or maybe you're on an installation crew, and then after you've set all the heads in the ground and you go back, maybe you need to do a single adjustment on it just to get the system up and running. Then you've got other technicians that come behind you to check on stuff. But the 4-step process is: 1, you observe the head and how it's currently running. 2, you set up the fixed limit of the head. 3, then you set up the adjustable arc limit of the head. And then 4, you adjust the radius by setting up the set screw for the nozzle. Okay, as you're walking up to the head, the zone should be on and running so that you can see its performance. You're going to be looking at where it's hitting each limit, its right and left side of its arc, or if it's doing a 360 degree. And just don't assume if it's supposed to be doing a 360 degree, observe it and make sure that it's going all the way around. I can't tell you the number of times that I see one that's supposed to be in a 360, but it's only doing a portion of its arc, and you wonder why there's this big brown spot in the yard. So observe what it's doing. And, as you look here, you can speed it up so you don't have to watch it do the entire pattern. As far as I know, just about every rotor head has a slip gear in the top of its turret here. You have the shaft that comes up, but the top part of the shaft here oscillates back and forth. And for a Nelson head, you can't turn it, you can't speed it up, and you have to adjust each side of it. So it's a little different in its instructions here. But for your typical Rainbird, Toro, Hunter head, Irrigation, these are all pretty much the same. And so you can speed up the process by adjusting this or turning the top of the turret just to speed it up. Now, don't turn it in the opposite direction that it's currently moving in, or you can strip out the gears. So hopefully as you're walking up to the head, you've observed a portion of its pattern. But if you're going quickly from one to another and you want to see what it's doing, don't think that if you turn it to its limit, you've seen where it's going to stop. Some heads are a little differently. Yes, the slip screw or the slip adjustment of this will allow you to see close to where it's going to stop. But what I do is I turn it about 75% of the way, but with my fingers, and then allow the gears to engage and let the gears carry it to its limit. I observe it. Then once it changes directions, I turn it the other 75% of the way, let it engage its gears, check the limit. And for a lot of heads, you'll want to see it touch its limit twice, because not every head stops at the exact same place every rotation. Some heads will vary slightly every other time that it hits its limit. So if you want to get really precise, then watch where it hits twice, and then you can make an accurate adjustment on it. And so also, as you're looking at the head and seeing where it's turning, make an identification of the make and model so that you'll know which side of its limit is fixed. For Rainbird, the left limits are fixed in the head, and for Hunter, the right limit is fixed. Toro has left limits. I think Irrigation and K-Rain make heads that have some of each. Some left limits stop, some right limits stop. And so step 2, what you want to do is first adjust the limit that's fixed in the head, because you don't want to first adjust the adjustable limit and realize that the set limit is fixed and have to go back and do everything twice. So if you're I've got a Rainbird head here in my hand, so you walk up on this Rainbird 5000 and you see that the left limit is off. Okay, you've got a couple of different options here. You could dig up the top part of the head here and then take your channel locks and grab the top part of that and then turn it on its fitting. And hopefully when it was installed, they didn't use, glue or a sealant to put this in place. And hopefully it'll have a little bit of turn here on its fitting so that you can turn it and adjust that left limit. Or, in the case of Rainbirds and Hunters, PGPs, they have pretty robust gear sets in it, and I'm sure that the manufacturer don't want me to tell you this, but you can use your channel locks while it's running to grab a hold of the shaft and gently give it a tug in the direction that you need to adjust that left limit in. Now, there's some older heads, for instance, the Rainbird or the T-Bird, the Thunderbird head. Most of those are quite old now, if they're still in the ground and running. But if you try to do this, boom, you'll break that gear set in it, and then you'll have to replace the entire head. So just use a little bit of caution if you do this. And this is something that comes from experience. Just remember that this stuff is ABS plastic. And so if you come in here like Hulk Hogan and just squeeze down on that, you're going to crack that plastic and end up with a big leak out the side of the shaft there. So that's something that you can do. That's something that comes through a little bit of time and experience. But after a month or two of adjusting these heads out in the field, you'll learn which ones that you can grab a hold of and how hard that you have to grab it to adjust that. Otherwise, you're going to have to dig up that top portion of the rotor and turn it from its body here. And don't turn it from the top of the bonnet, because you could unscrew it. This part comes off here, where you can pull the guts and the gear set out of it. So don't try to adjust it by its top. I know that it has some ridges here, some scallops on the top, and if you need to turn it to the right, then maybe you can grab it, with your channel locks there on those ridges and give it a tug to the right. But if you try to go to the left, chances are you're just going to unscrew that top bonnet there. So step 2, you set the fixed side of the head, and in your study guide here, I give you a chart and tell you which rotors have which sides that are set, and which side is adjustable. So step number 3, you're going to want to adjust the adjustable side of the arc. So in the case of this Rainbird head, we just said that the left limit was fixed and the right limit is adjustable. So you'll take your little Rainbird tool here and fit it down into the section to where you can adjust the arc, and it'll typically give you, a plus or minus on the head, if you can see it. On this one, if you want to add to the arc, you go clockwise. If you want to subtract from the arc, you go counterclockwise. Okay, so then you make your adjustment on that, recheck it, check it again to make sure that it's stopping exactly where you want it to stop. And then number 4 is you're going to adjust the radius. Okay, on a residential or even a commercial system, it may have been set up and maybe something's changed. A new bush has gone in that you don't want to be spraying directly into, or maybe this is spraying into a window and it could be rotting a wooden window out. So that's one of the reasons you may want to change up the radius or the distance that it's throwing, or maybe, something else has changed about it that you don't want to be spraying into a car or whatever it is. There's all kinds of reasons that you want to change this. But also, there's a kind of a misguided practice out there that I've come across a lot of technicians that when they install a rotor, they're automatically going to be running this set screw down to where it just slightly impedes the flow of water as it comes out of the nozzle. I asked a guy once why he did that, and he said it gives it a better pattern. But when you look in the manufacturer's guide, it indicates that the pattern is at its most even when it's at full extension, or it's not impeded at all by that set screw. So that's just something to keep in mind. You may run across an entire system that has, just barely run down in there and barely shortened it up. And when you shorten up the distance or the radius, it fattens out the pattern and kind of flattens it down a little bit. So you are changing the natural way that this head throws water out. So just be aware of that. So let's go back over it. Step 1, you're going to observe the pattern that it's currently operating in, and you're going to identify the make and model of the head. Step 2, you're going to adjust the fixed limit first by pivoting the head in the ground on its fixture, on its fitting here, by whichever way that you do it, by either by grabbing it by the case or by the shaft, whatever you feel comfortable doing there. And then step 3, you're going to adjust the adjustable part of the arc by using the adjusting set that's given to you here. With the Rainbird, you use this and adjust that. And then step 4, you're going to adjust the radius by either running that set screw down and impeding the flow, or backing it back out and stopping the impediment of the flow. But just one more little tip here is that a lot of these adjustment parts down inside of here are made of plastic. And all of these rotors have a rubber top on them with little flaps that hopefully keep most or all of the dirt out of those adjustment screws. But a lot of times, dirt does get packed down in there. And if you feel like that your tool isn't fully engaging, Rainbird has all of their adjustments are just a flathead screwdriver as far as the adjustment and the fittings on the screws. But Hunter uses a set screw for the nozzle that is hex shaped, but the newer ones also have a flat slot in it, but the older ones are only hex shaped, and it has a problem with getting dirt packed down in there. And so if you're trying to adjust and you feel that it's not fully seated down in there, that there's some dirt or sand or grit down in there, you may strip that plastic piece out, or even the little stainless steel set screw. So I keep a dental pick on my truck so that if you feel like it's packed full of dirt, then get down in there and kind of clean that fitting out a little bit, and kind of, you can pull it out of the little rubber place there and get the grit out of it, so that when you're trying to engage this, you don't strip it out and have to replace the entire head just because you've stripped out the adjustment little piece in here. Okay, I hope that little tip helps you out, and I hope that quick 4-step process will get you really efficient as you're out there adjusting rotors in the field.